going to be talking all about 2023 interior design trends. I am the first one to admit that I love an accent wall. My home has an accent wall behind me. I've got tons of them. But in the next year, in 2023, you're gonna see a departure from the single accent wall. And what you're gonna see instead is taking that design element across the entire room. And that really brings the room together in a much more cozy and cohesive way. So if you've got one of these accent walls in your home and you're thinking, uh-oh, is this out of style? It's not that it's completely dated, but the new trend that you're gonna see is really taking that style all the way across the room. Whether it's doing something like a half board and batten with a wallpaper, instead of doing it just on one feature wall, you're gonna take it all the way across the room. Now, speaking of accent walls, we used to see a lot of very geometric accent walls trending for the past 5 to 7 years. You know, we saw really popular board and battens, those angled walls, and you're gonna see a departure from those as well. What you're gonna see a lot more is a very traditional kind of classic wall molding. So this is like a decorative molding or a wainscoting, and you can do it in lots of different ways. You could do it with the entire room, with big boxes, with smaller boxes. In a hallway, you could just do the lower half of the room. There's so many different options of what you can do with it. And this is a really easy beginner DIY project. You could even just get a miter box and the trim. You don't even need a power saw. Having one makes it a little bit easier, but you don't need it. I'll link a few of my tutorials below in case you're wanting to create some of these stunning walls. Paint is such an easy way to change up your room, and we've seen a lot of very stark white rooms lately, right? Like white rooms have been really popular for a long time, and I'll be the first one to admit that I love a nice cool white. But we are going to start to see a lot more dark and moody colors. And I'm not just talking about black, because that's been popular for a few years, but you're gonna see a lot of really rich plums, burgundies, and maroons. And these are just such inviting colors. Like when you go into a room like that, you just feel so cozy. You can hang out there the whole day because of that kind of moody, chill vibe that the color gives off. Now, this is definitely a color trend that leans more towards the transitional or traditional spaces. You're not gonna see a lot of these moody colors in modern rooms, right? So if you love these colors, think about pairing it with a wainscoting or a traditional beadboard. It's gonna be super impactful. And if you're like, no, this is really dark and I'm kind of scared of this color, try it out in a small space. If you've got a laundry room or a bathroom, something where you can try it out and just see how you like it. Because paint is really easy to change, but doing it in an open space or a large room can be really intimidating. I love to do moody colors in bathrooms because it's great. It has a big, bold color impact, but then you can close the door and it doesn't flow into the rest of your house. Also, pairing these with gold accents like gold knobs, a gold mirror frame is really beautiful and just enhances that moody color a little bit more. Speaking about walls, let's talk about the fifth wall in your house. What's the fifth wall? Well, it's the ceiling, of course. Ceiling design is going to be super popular in 2023, and there's so many different ways that you can make your ceiling pop. You can simply paint it. You can add a wallpaper to it. You can add beams or even a coffered ceiling. Don't forget about your ceiling. Now, let's say you have a space where you've already designed the room and you're like, well, what could I do to the ceiling? Painting it one of the complementary colors is gonna be the best bang for your buck because one, it's really inexpensive. So make sure you use a flat paint on the ceiling. Don't use anything with a sheen. You definitely need a flat paint. And actually, I think a lot of people think that painting the ceiling actually draws your eye downwards, but it actually makes the space look bigger because you're looking up towards the ceiling, like something you usually wouldn't even look at. If you've got popcorn ceilings and you're like, I don't want to smooth out my ceiling and I can't wallpaper this, a great option is to shiplap your ceiling. So in my home, we have a mix of flat ceiling and popcorn ceiling, and I don't know why the builder did this, like, come on. And I remember when we bought this house, the builder said, hey, if you want to remove all your popcorn ceilings, we'll do it for $3,000 per floor. And I was like, no, thank you. So in my basement flex space, I actually shiplap the ceiling, and it is such a great way to add character to the ceiling without actually doing all the mess of removing your popcorn ceiling, because that's gonna be really dusty. Oh, and I'll link the tutorial for my shiplap ceiling as well. In the past few years, furniture has been really in the vibe of mid-century modern. You'll see a lot of leather couches with the angled legs, really narrow arms or flat cushions. Now, that's been a great trend, and I think that will actually continue, but what we're gonna see is a new trend of more rounded furniture. So you'll see the backs of the furniture, they're more rounded, the arms are rounded, and it just is gonna be a trend in all different types of furniture. Definitely couches and armchairs, a lot of tables, and you'll see that trend really emerge with a lot of tufting, velvet kind of fabrics. Really, it makes it look a lot more luxurious and opulent. Now, if you're thinking, I don't want to invest like $10,000, $5,000 in a new couch that might be trendy, what you could do is bring in these rounded features in a much more approachable way. So maybe you just get like a rounded ottoman. Now that's something even really simple to DIY. Maybe you just bring in one rounded chair. It's really about updating your space in a very manageable and approachable way. Along with the rounded chairs, you're gonna see a lot of round features and other types of architecture, especially in doorways. You'll see arches everywhere in doorways, and I think that's really cool because it's almost like a throwback to a lot of very, very old and classic architecture, like taking a look at the Colosseum. Look at all those rounded doorways they had there. So doing rounded doorways, doing rounded like arch features in the wall, like in a bathroom or even in a cool dining room nook, right? And this is something that can actually be DIY. Like, I know you might think it's intimidating, but there's so many great tutorials on how to create a round archway from just a very rectangular, regular archway. So if you're thinking, I don't know if I want to invest in renovating my home with this archway, maybe my home's too modern to have like that kind of look, what you could also do is bring in other types of rounded elements. So behind me, you'll see that I have an arch mirror on my fireplace. So this is a great way to bring in that shape without actually changing the architecture of my home. You can also get a floor-length rounded mirror to have in your bedroom or in your entryway. It's a great way to bring in that shape without investing a lot. Rounded cabinets with the arch cabinet have been super popular as well. And these are actually gonna be more classic. Like, I think that rounded cabinet is gonna be here to stay for many, many years. When we think about our bathroom, it's probably one of the last spaces you actually design, but I'm here to say that this is the year to have a return to a classical style bathroom. Now, what does that even mean? So what that means is elements like wainscoting, really small print wallpaper, gold and brass features like your sink, faucet, polished nickels. Those are all gonna be really, really popular in a return to these very classical bathrooms. And again, this is a space where it's small enough that you can go bold, you can try something different and really see how you love it. The last design trend that I'm gonna talk about is a feminine wallpaper. So I think in the last few years, we've seen a lot of very geometric wallpapers, or we've actually seen like very large overscaled wallpapers. And I think those are beautiful and they're wonderful, but what you're gonna see is these small printed feminine wallpapers. And this actually ties into our other trend where we talked about taking the design all the way across the room. So instead of having like a bold, oversized wallpaper print on one wall, you're gonna take this small print across the entire room. Maybe it's the top half of the room and the bottom half has some type of feature like a wainscoting. And you'll see these to be very, very popular in all types of rooms, but they especially work really well in bedrooms because the bedroom has the four walls that are enclosed and you can take that wallpaper all the way across. And a lot of the motifs you're gonna see are gonna be like leaves and flowers. So it's also gonna be very organic, kind of like that. Birds, things like that, that are not geometric, but more of an ode to nature. These are the top 2023 trends that you're gonna see this year. Make sure to try them out in your home, even if it's in a very small way. And if you try these out, I'd love to see it. Comment below, tell me which one is your favorite, and maybe I missed some of them. Like, what's your big prediction for the next year? And I'll see you next time. Make sure you subscribe to my channel. Bye, guys.